Hey folks, Andy here. I am here back at my screen doing another screen recording for you. And I want to go through a couple of things that I've been doing the last couple of days. So, where am I? Last Thursday, I had my friend Tim come in and do a play test, and he loved it. And he wanted to actually keep up with it. And since it's just a couple of sheets of paper, eventually it'll be one sheet of paper for the components and then some rules. It's easy for him to do that. He can just print it out at home, cut it out at home, not a big deal. So I want to set it up so that we can do that, and whenever he wants to, he can just go and get the latest version and have all of that automatically build. So I did that where I installed Travis. But then in doing that, I also reorganized some of my files to kind of make it a little bit more of a project, because my file count is getting a little bit big, and I didn't want all of that in the root of the repository. So I'm going to show you how I reorganized the project. I'm going to show you how I did Travis, and then I'll show you what I did with the rules. So as you can see here, I'm up on GitHub. I am going to compare from 3.0 to, well, right now I'm at 4.5. My versioning, the way I see it, is every time I bump a major number like 3 to 4, that's like where the game itself is different. So even if I've made balancing changes, you know, you want the rules and the components to be kind of in parity. So anytime I really change the content of one of those, I bump to the next one. And so hopefully I get lots and lots of versions. Otherwise, if it's the subversion that's really just like another testing of Travis, or just some other reorganization that I want to change but doesn't really change like the game experience, that's kind of the way I do it. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these commits. I'll actually go through kind of the overall diff. But first, let me show you how I organized my files. So over here in Atom, you can see that I started organizing my files into folders. So I put in the data folder, I actually put my combat sim results into the data folder. I have the Excel file, I have the CSV. So in the last video, I generated a CSV file, but then what I did is I actually just copied it over to an Excel file so that I could have things like freeze panes and all that. I've found this to be incredibly useful as I go. Next, what I did is I put the game data in there as well. This file, this deck.txt, is a file that is automatically generated. I don't know that I talked about this last time, but you know, one of the great things about Excel is that it's very powerful. I can do a lot with it, but one of the disadvantages with it is that it's a binary file. So it doesn't, you know, trying to see what is new to what I've done is, you know, not very easy to do. You can't really diff Excel sheets, at least very easily. So what I do is in my script, I have a call here where I say, hey, every single time, take my whole data frame, take the whole sheet and write it, and I have this to pretty text. And this is actually documented on the Squib stuff, and you know, it doesn't really make sense if you're not really using like my process, but now I can see how I use it. So as you can see, this kind of outputs a textual version of the card, and I even put some fancy little UTF characters to have rounded corners. But the idea here is that the content of the card is automatically generated. You can see, and I even have things like notes, like, because this is straight out of the Excel doc. So this is not like the notes thing is not really in the, you know, final content. It's just in my notes. But frankly, for someone like Tim or one of my other playtesters to see what's different, it's a great way to summarize it. And it's actually a great way for me to summarize it to you. And so you'll actually see some diffs of what I did. So I find that to be really handy. And so really every time I run the thing, it just saves it to that file. If the file is new, Git will update it, and so you can diff it. So that's cool. I moved all of my code into the lib folder. You can move it into like a source folder, whatever you call it. But I moved all of the everything into the lib folder. So because I started to get more than one Ruby file. I decided to put the version number on the actual cards, because if I'm going to have multiple versions and my friend prints it out and then he has a problem with it, I need to ask him, what version do you have? And so that way I can have this tiny little version number up in the corner here, version 4.5. Oh, there's version 4.5. Why don't you upgrade to 4.6 or whatever? And okay. So that is a handy thing. That's something that you got to do. When you're doing this all by yourself, you can keep track of all this stuff, and it's easy. But when you start collaborating with other people, then you got to do stuff like this. So there's the version number, and all I do is I just have it as a global variable inside of a module. And so it's just a string, and then I just update that every time I want. I like having that in a separate file, just kind of for Git reasons. And then I organized all this down. I still have the two different decks in one Ruby file. In general, if this were bigger than a nanogame, I actually would recommend that you put every deck face in its own Ruby file. It just kind of scales better. Like in general, I like to keep my Ruby files as small as possible, so that I can kind of just focus on one thing at a time and not have to scroll all around and find what I'm doing. But there we are. And then I moved the images into here, and then in order to move the images into the image folder, you'll notice that I still didn't change my code. My code still is saying load this image from, so resources, load this image from resources SVG, items SVG. You notice that I didn't have to say image /, and that's because in my config, I changed my image directory to the image folder, so whatever I want to call that. I also turned on progress bars because I think progress bars are cool, but not everybody does, so I have them turned off by default. But I think they're cool. So progress bars are really where you get this thing where it tells you how fast each line is, so you can kind of get a sense of what's taking a long time and what the progress of your build is doing while you're building. So I changed that in the config.yaml for Squib. So you can see that I'm starting to scale out a little bit more. You'll also notice that I have a fonts folder where I use built-in fonts, and on that's for Travis. So when I build on the build server for Travis, it doesn't have that font, so I'm going to need to install that font. I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. So anyway, this is how I organize things. Honestly, I think for Squib, eventually, I like to have a Squib new advanced, so have a new project template that kind of fleshes it all out to this stuff. By the way, at this point, I no longer just do Ruby deck.rb. I don't run it that way. I always run it through the rake file, because now it's gonna assume that the build is gonna happen at the root of the repository folder. If I ran it inside of lib, like Ruby deck.rb inside of lib, wouldn't work. Okay, that's how I organized. Next, Travis. So let me talk about Travis here. So what I did, as you can see, I had a lot of commits just to get it working, and this is always how it goes. So what is Travis? So Travis is a build system that allows you to really just continuously build your code. So every time you push to GitHub, it will trigger the Travis build system. It will download your code. It will run it on one of their servers. And then when it's done, you can ask it to post whatever the outcome is outward. Travis is also called continuous integration. It's a very common software engineering practice nowadays. And the idea is that it's like a canary in the coal mine. In fact, some people actually call it canary builds. And with the canary in the coal mine, you can see that oh, my code's broken, and so I'm going to run my tests and see that my code's broken or not. In Squib world, what we're going to use Travis for is really build our PDFs, and then whenever I use a git tag, just create a new tag. It will create a new release on GitHub, and it will post those files to that. So let me go over the file changes here. I had to, in order to get Travis to work, I had to remove this file called gemfile.lock. Bundler, this is a bundler thing, so your gem file is what you specify as what you want to use, and then gemfile.lock is the way bundler remembers what is actually being used. And unfortunately, because I'm working on Windows, Travis runs on Linux. I could use another build system like AppVeyor that runs it on Windows, but I like Travis more. By deleting gemfile.lock, I am saying, you know what, Travis, just run everything on the latest version of all of my gems, which honestly means that sometimes your Travis build could break for no fault of your own. Sometimes your builds will just break, and because there's some sort of bug in a new gem. For you, that might be a headache. For me, I actually kind of like that because it means that I can see problems in some of my dependencies. The vast majority of Squib bugs that I've had over the years have been through my dependencies. They'll change something, and then the way I use it needs to change, and so I like to see that fail early so that I can fix Squib itself. That's just me. but you might need to delete gemfile.lock or somehow modify it so that it's a little bit more cross-platform. Then the way that you interact with Travis is this .travis.yaml. So they use a YAML file for their configuration. And really, it's actually quite simple. So you specify the language. In this case, I do say I need sudo, but I don't know that if that's actually necessary. I might not be able to get away with it. I don't know. What version of Ruby I want to use? Sure, let's just use the latest. I have to install my fonts. So any special fonts that you use, it's going to copy from my current fonts folder at the root of the repository, and it's going to copy it into this .fonts folder. And so it will copy it there, and then FC cache will install all the fonts in your .fonts folder. That's just a Linux thing. The server runs on Linux, and so you just have to do that. That's how I figured out a long time ago how to do it. Feel free to copy me. And then at that point, I just run rake, and then down here, what I did, and I'll put a link in the commit. I'll put a link in the description below for the video. I set up deployment, and actually Travis did this for me. I did I think it's Travis setup releases on the command line. You install the Travis gem, and you run it. Travis has a Ruby command line thing. So, and what it does is it creates this secure key. Now you might be worried, hey Andy, why are you putting a secure key in your a cryptographic key in a public repository, and even on a YouTube video? This is actually fine because this is an encrypted version of my key. So basically, Travis needs permission to access my GitHub and to create a new release. And so then what this does is this is encrypting it with a private key inside of Travis, and so it's perfectly safe to have this out in the public. I didn't do any copying and pasting here. It actually generated it myself, or generated it from its own tool. And then I say provider is releases, and then it says, hey, these are the files that are going to be part of a release. You notice here, I also wrote the rules. For now, I'm doing the rules in a Word document. That's not very plain text friendly, and that's not very Git friendly. I know. If you want to see a more complex version of what I'm doing, you can look at Project Timberwolf, which is also my game, Your Last Heist. For there, I actually write all of my rules in Markdown, and then I use Markdown, and then I convert Markdown to HTML, convert HTML to PDF. That is a much more complex process. It uses some libraries that are still kind of a little sketchy. So not sketchy as in like they're in beta. So I don't know that I can like recommend that to the average Squib user because it's a little bit. I'm willing to take on a few more headaches to have my for that use case. But for now, I'm just keeping it in Word because why not? And what this does is this: every time I create a tag, it will run this part and create a deploy. So I deleted my gemfile.lock. I modified the guard. I had to modify the guard file when I reorganized things. I got rid of my playtesting log, my PNP notes for now. I'm just not going to use it at the moment. I should at some point, but I just deleted them because I didn't use it from the stock Squib thing. Reorganized the rake file a bit. That was part of reorganizing. Config. Reorganized. You can see some of the balancing changes right here. So this is where I was talking about where it's really nice to have plain text for your game data, so that my friend Tim or any of my other play testers can see what's new. For example, I made strong magnet a little bit harder to get. So yeah, you can see some of the changes there. I don't want to go over like the game design decisions. This video is going to be long enough as it is. I removed game.csv because I switched from CSV to Excel. I think I did that in a prior video, but I just cleaned out that file. I moved things into the image folder. I moved the resources into the image folder. In organizing things, I got myself off of the built-in layout. So I went in and copied and pasted the built-in Squib layout for fantasy.yaml, and I just started making my own. That fantasy.yaml was really about just using the built-in layout to just get going. But now that I've really started to customize things, I just copied in what I needed, and then now I'm gonna start modifying. So, a couple of weeks into it is kind of the way I see it. At this point, I'm probably about 20 or 30 hours into this game, maybe about 30 hours into working on this game total, including playtest time, including all that. coding time, all that. So that's probably about the time to start using my own layout and not having to um, work on the built-in layout. I put in the version thing, and really the code here, yeah. So I got rid of the fantasy and the built-in Squib layout, and I'm just going with my own layout, which meant that I did a little bit of reorganizing. I removed dingbats. I'm not actually using dingbats. I am. I reorganized a little bit about how the creatures look. So you might notice that in the past I had 3 vertical wells for the barter build and battle, but now I went with a more horizontal look. Really, again, like I'm not really working on the artwork per se, but I'm just kind of trying to get more of this to work, to look to kind of fit the content on. So like, for me, like, does this stuff fit on the content? Does it fit on the components? Is a big part of what I'm doing. So, so that's why I modified the layout there. Yeah, as you can see, I've been hard at work on this. So, and then saving it out to the PDF. So, that's what I've been up to. The rules document, let's see if I can pull up that rules document here. That's what it looks like. I think I just wrote this fresh last night. Took me about 2 or 3 hours. Right now it's 2 pages. It's probably going to be longer than 2 pages, but I just wanted to I'm really not putting a whole lot of work into diagrams right now. I just want to get it enough where my friends can remember what the rules are and go. But probably for most of my playtesters, I'll teach them the game and then in person, and then ask them to work to take a look at the rules. Eventually, I'll have one of my friends be a blind playtester, but for now, the rules are kind of still in flux, and so I want them to want to play rather than blind playtesting. So I'm gonna hold off on blind playtesting for now, and I'm still sticking with playtesters as friends for now. Eventually, we'll get to blind playtesters. But there you go. I have 4 examples in there. I've written up I have some extra challenges which I just kind of sketched out. I've tried some of these actually myself, and then I came up with a few other ones. I came up with another one actually last night before I fell asleep, so I got to write that one down now. So there you go. So those are the rules. That's Travis. Let me show you what Travis actually looks like. This is Travis. So as you can see, every time the way that it works is every time I push to GitHub, Travis is hooked into GitHub, and you can get the build. So when it actually builds, you can see here, it actually outputs the whole console. So you can see, here's how it actually got Ruby. Here's how it installed the font. Here's my actual progress bar with the build. And then this one didn't actually deploy it. It actually deployed on this build. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So you can actually see this, and actually as it's building, you can see that it took, our last run was 24 minutes ago, and then it ran for 1 minute 18 seconds. So it's pretty quick. And then what it does is over on GitHub here, when you go to Project Bolt Rats, you can see 9 releases. So if you go to the releases and you go to the latest release, version 4.5, this is the one that I just did 24 minutes ago, and you can see here creatures PDF, resources PDF, rules.docx. So boom, there it is. Download it. There's the PDF. So slick, so easy. The way that I actually create a new release is in Git extensions, or really you could also do this on GitHub where you just create a new release and you say, I'm gonna just create a new tag, but you create a tag in GitHub, or sorry, a tag in Git, and then the GitHub creates that into a quote unquote release. So very easy. All I have to say is I dub the version 4.5, and then Travis will kick in an extra build, and it will build the PDF. When it comes to if your game is like really big, Travis actually, GitHub will actually host really big files for you, and they actually allow lots and lots of files. So by all means, do it. If you have more than a couple of files, I would say maybe zip them up, which you can do in your script. I might eventually zip them up. I might take some of these PDFs and stitch them together. That's one thought I was going to have. I might take the rules.docx and convert it to PDF. I could have Travis do that. I could figure out how to do that. That way, not everybody, not everybody has Word. I could also have rules and creatures. I could have rules convert like .docx convert to A4 and have an A4 one and a letter one. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this, and so I'm really excited about this idea. So there you go. This was a long video, so thank you so much for sticking around. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you can see that this game is going to serve as a really nice example for you. Next time I'm going to talk a little bit more about the game, I think, and we'll go from there. So anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.